Welcome to Boldly Go, a newbie look at the enterprise of Star Trek. So, I'm making this video series for all of you like me who have heard of Star Trek, are somewhat familiar with Star Trek, maybe with the new movies that have come out starring Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto. But you want to be a real Trekkie. You want to be hardcore arguing Kirk versus Picard. So, we're going to start from the very beginning, the very origins of Star Trek, with the original series, and today we are starting with Episode 1, The Man Trap. Now, I want to give you a little background information about me, and why I'm doing this, and my experience with Star Trek so far. My brother is a Trekkie, was a Trekkie, might still be a Trekkie, not entirely sure, but we did go to a lot of conventions, Star Trek conventions in Central Florida and South Florida, and he invented a game called Trivial Pursuit. Fun times. So, I went to about 5 or 6 of these conventions before he stopped going, and I grew up, of course living with a Trekkie, he grew up with a lot of the movies. Now I'm more familiar with the later movies. Honestly, I can't remember all the names for you, but I did watch The Next Generation a little bit of Voyager. I've definitely seen The Wrath of Khan. A little bit more familiar with the late 80s and early 90s Star Trek Enterprise, as we'll call it. But with the recent flux in the new reboot of the Star Trek series, with those movies starring Zachary Quinto and Chris Pine, and more recently Benedict Cumberbatch, I decided I really wanted to start from the beginning. There's a lot of inside information in these movies. Granted, you can start watching these movies, you don't need to know anything. They're entertaining in their own right. But for people like me who really want to know everything and we have nothing better to do, then that's why I started this video blog. And we're going to go through every single episode, starting with the first 80 of the original Star Trek series, working our way up to the more recent series from 2001 to 2005, Star Trek Enterprise. So let's get started with Episode 1. Now, the way that these will work, I'm not going to be giving you the entire synopsis of the episode. What I want to encourage you to do, watch the episode yourself, watch my review, feel free to agree or disagree with my opinions. I'm going to be focusing a lot more on story because that's where my strengths lie. How the characters interact, how the storyline comes out, and most especially how the monster or the villain of the week works overall to help us understand more about the world that Star Trek is existing in. So, let's get started with the Man Trap. Now, as far as story goes, as a pilot, now this is not the original pilot. The original pilot was The Cage, and that was with the original crew, the only one to survive. The original crew with Captain Pike was Mr. Spock, and his characterization in the original was very different. For one thing, he smiled. It was weird. So, because that particular episode is going to be coming up later in the series, in the two-parter, The Menagerie, I am going to be saving it for then. We're just going to be talking about what is considered the official pilot with the crew that we will be taking our 80-episode journey with. So, as far as story goes for The Man Trap, I think it is intriguing to start off not focusing on Captain Kirk, but on Dr. McCoy. I think this is an interesting move as a beginner because Dr. McCoy, frankly, is not the captain. Usually you would want to start with this big introduction about who the captain is and how he became captain and his crew and how they're so loyal to him. Something like that to sort of establish these characters as they relate to each other. And in this way, I like and dislike the storyline. I could go either way. With the particular creature that they chose, I think it's very interesting. It's, again, watch the episode before you watch this. I'm not going to put a spoiler alert on all of these. I'm assuming you've watched it before I've put it on. So, for the particular creature in this one, it's very much like a vampire, succubus, chameleon sort of thing. And it's intriguing. I like the monster in and of itself. I feel like this monster should have come up much later, a couple of episodes down, so that maybe we could learn more about Captain Kirk, about how he interacts with Mr. Spock, how Dr. McCoy fits into it. So in that way, I do and don't like the monster. But the monster in and of itself, without actually seeing what it looks like in real life, now that's the kicker. I like the monster when you didn't know what it looked like, because frankly it's a little silly, but again, it's the pilot. And I'm going to be a lot more forgiving of the pilot than I'm going to be of a lot of other episodes, just because it's the pilot. They're always feeling their way out. It's like putting a group of 4 strange children into a sandbox and saying, play with each other effectively and win us awards for it. You know, that's very hard to do the first time around. So, as far as the monster goes, this sort of salt-sucking succubus, very alliterative, it's a very nice monster, I like it. But again, I would have preferred it a little further down, so then, because I would have preferred not necessarily to start with, you know, Captain Kirk in the ways of characterization, but I would have liked to see how this crew worked with each other. Now, somebody you will notice that is not in the crew is Chekhov, who is our other helmsman. Chekhov will not be appearing until season 2. From what I understand, they were trying to appeal to the younger demographic, and so they got Walter Koenig, I'm really sorry if I mispronounced your name, to come in, and from his own words, from what I understand, he thought he was supposed to be sort of like a Davy Jones, you know, with a Russian accent. So, he was brought in to be to appeal to the younger demographic, sort of like I feel like how Wesley was in The Next Generation. And that's the only Star Trek reference you're gonna get from me that's relevant, because I did not watch enough of it, honestly, to pull all the time. At the end of this, I hope to be a hardcore Trekkie. I hope to be amazing. But for right now, just getting started, getting my little, you know, training wheels on. So for the monster, I feel like it was okay. Wasn't great, it was okay. Interesting concept, would have been nicer later. Now, let's go to the overall story as an introductory story. And again, this is where the monster comes in, and I really feel like it was not as well done as it could have been. For a pilot, overall, I think it was pretty good. For any pilot in general, because pilots are usually very awkward. That's why they had 2 for this series, one with Captain Pike, and the actor who played him declined to continue, and this one. But this one, overall, I felt like it was okay. I feel like some of the weaknesses were with their choice of who to focus on, and the fact that it seemed like they just jumped right in without introducing you, such as Uhura speaks Swahili. I'm not sure if she is actually Swahili. I'm not sure. That I had no idea. I thought she only spoke alien languages. She speaks Swahili. Okay, that's great. Why does she speak Swahili? Like, where is she from? You know, we want a little bit of background information on them, and we don't get any in this stuff. We don't even know where Kirk's from, honestly. Like, is he from Earth? Is he from a human colony? You know, what about Spock? You know, I understand he's Vulcan, but, like, did he grow up on Vulcan? You know, what about McCoy? Sulu? Sulu isn't here, so let me go ahead and say the members we are going to see right now in this episode was Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Uhura, and Sulu. Now, we don't see Scotty yet. I did not see him in this episode. I'm not sure when he's coming in. Of course, we'll talk about it, or I'll talk about it, and you will listen as soon as he shows up. But for right now, the people we won't be seeing are, in this episode, Scotty, and of course, Chekhov will not be here until next season. So, I think overall as the pilot, Star Trek, the Man Trap was reasonable. I felt like it tried, but again, the fact that there was no introduction, we didn't learn anything about the background of the characters. I don't even know how long they've been together, because there are some times in this episode where the characters are really surprised, mainly by something Spock does. Like, for example, a man has died on the planet's surface. Spock is very emotionless, logical, in control, as Spock is. You don't even have to know the series to know that Spock is logical. That's what he does. That's Spock's thing. And everyone seems surprised. So how long have they all been together as a crew? I thought that, considering we weren't getting information, that maybe they had been together for years. And now, from what I understand, maybe a week. I have no idea. And that's something really important to know, is how much are they going to be trusting each other depending on how long they've been together. Why are they surprised if they've been together for a period of time? Why are they surprised that Spock acts like Spock does? These are really important things to know. You know, it would be really helpful to know, okay, we just started our 5-year journey today. This is our first mission in the entirety of our 5-year journey. That's good to know. But we don't get that. So, that's a problem. And one I feel like could have been easily remedied with a little bit of exposition, as much as I'm not an exposition girl. A tiny bit of exposition is nice when you have no idea what's going on. Too much exposition, of course, is irritating. But it could have been placed well in here. You know, it could have been definitely when they were starting off the beginning with exposition about McCoy and Nancy Crater. I feel like they could have definitely put some exposition about the ship and the crew as well. But these are it's a little bit nitpicky for me. Like, I'm going to be a lot more forgiving of this episode because it is the pilot. This is all the actors interacting with each other, making history. You know, it's people of all creeds and colors on the ship. Kudos. I will always celebrate that. That's awesome. And yeah, so I think that that's about it. Now, we come to my favorite part of the entire vlog, and that is where I give my Tribble rating. Tribble ratings, you will see Tribbles at the bottom of the screen from 1 to 5, depending on how much I like this episode. At the end of each season, and eventually at the end of each series, I will be doing my best and worst. So, for this one, I am giving a solid 3 Tribbles. Some people would disagree with me, maybe think there should be more, should be less. For an introduction, I felt like it was average. I felt like they really needed more. I felt like the monster was its biggest strength and its biggest weakness. It was a very novel idea. But again, I almost feel like they gave too much to you. I feel like it would have been better had the monster not had a body, because it's a little silly looking. It's like a Yeti with a gas mask and one painted green. And then they threw a fishnet on it. So I feel like it could have been done better, most definitely, but it's a pilot. And the way it works with all pilots is, it's supposed to be good enough to draw you in to make you want to watch it more, and then of course the series develops, people develop, you know, they get better. It's always like that. You can't expect to make amazing cupcakes the first time you've ever made cupcakes. You know, first time you've ever looked at an egg and flour and said, oh, I want to make cupcakes. You never make good ones the first time. Same thing with pilots. That's an awful analogy, but I'm gonna go with it. Anyways, thanks for this time, guys, and I will see you next time for episode 2. Take care.